It was a Friday evening when Michael agreed to accompany his wife, Sarah, to her company's annual gala. He knew it meant a lot to her. She had been working hard and wanted to make an impression. Dressed in a navy suit, he felt proud walking into the Grand Hotel ballroom by her side. The chandeliers sparkled, music played softly, and waiters carried trays of champagne. Sarah spotted her boss, Mr. Turner, and her entire face lit up with excitement. She tugged at Michael's arm, whispering, "Come on, I need to introduce you." But once they reached Mr. Turner, Sarah seemed to forget Michael was even there. For the next hour, she laughed at every joke, nodded eagerly at every word, and never once turned to her husband. Michael stood quietly, sipping his drink, offering polite smiles when needed. At first, he brushed it off. Maybe she was just nervous, maybe she wanted to shine tonight. But as the minutes turned into hours, the distance between them grew heavier. Every time he tried to speak, Sarah interrupted or redirected the conversation back to her boss. She didn't notice his silence, nor the subtle ache forming in his chest. At one point, when another colleague asked Michael about his own career, Sarah quickly cut in. "Oh, he just does something small in IT, she said lightly, brushing him aside. The words stung, sharper than she realized, and Michael felt the walls of the ballroom close in. He excused himself politely, setting down his half-finished drink. Sarah barely noticed as she leaned in closer to her boss, hanging on his every word. Michael walked toward the exit, his step steady but heavy, each one filled with quiet resolution. The night air outside was cool, a sharp contrast to the stifling heat of the ballroom. He stood there for a moment, breathing deeply, realizing he didn't need to endure the humiliation any longer. Instead of waiting for her, instead of demanding her attention, he quietly called a cab. By the time Sarah finally looked around the ballroom, her husband was gone. Her smile faltered, panic flashing across her face as she pulled out her phone. She called him, but Michael let it ring, choosing silence over confrontation. When he finally answered hours later, his voice was calm but distant. "I'm home," he said simply. "I didn't want to stand in the corner all night waiting to be noticed." On the other end, Sarah went silent, realizing the weight of what she had done. Her boss, her colleagues, none of them mattered in that moment, only the husband who had walked away. The next morning, Sarah sat at the kitchen table, her eyes red from tears, her voice quiet. "You leaving last night? It broke me. I didn't realize how badly I was treating you," she admitted. Michael listened, his calm presence sharper than anger could ever be. "I don't need to compete for your attention," he said, "but I also won't stay invisible in my own marriage." Sarah reached across the table, her hand trembling as she tried to take his. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I lost sight of what really matters." Michael looked at her, seeing both regret and desperation in her eyes. He didn't answer immediately, letting the silence speak for him. Finally he said, "Respect isn't shown in speeches, it's shown in moments. Last night, I saw the truth in yours." Her tears spilled over, but this time, she didn't beg, she only listened. For Michael, the quiet exit had said everything words never could. And for Sarah, the shock of his silence was louder than any fight she had ever imagined.